I found a box of evidence revealing my wife used my sperm without consent to have a baby for her sister. For 13 years, my own daughter called me uncle while my wife was secretly meeting her surgeon lover. When I confronted them at their romantic cabin, everything changed. Watch until the end. Subscribe to the channel and write where you are watching from in the comments. The box sat on my kitchen counter like a time bomb. Inside were 18 years of lies, neatly documented in manila folders, medical records, bank statements, secret email printouts, text messages, and photos, so many photos that made my stomach turn. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it, nursing my third glass of whiskey, wondering how my life had come to this moment. The house was empty. Jessica was at her monthly book club meeting. The same book club she'd been attending for the past 5 years. The same book club that, as I recently discovered, didn't actually exist. My name is Daniel Morgan. 2 weeks ago, I was a successful architect with a beautiful wife, a nice house in the suburbs, and what I thought was a perfect 18-year marriage. Today, I'm a man whose entire reality has been shattered. And the most devastating part, the child I thought was my niece, my sister-in-law's pride and joy, was actually conceived with my sperm without my knowledge or consent. But let me start from the beginning. I met Jessica during my final year of architecture school. She was studying nursing, brilliant and beautiful, with the kind of laugh that made everyone around her smile. We had that rare kind of connection that people spend lifetimes searching for. After dating for 2 years, we got married in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. We always talked about having children, but Jessica had been diagnosed with endometriosis in her early 20s. The doctors told us conception would be difficult, possibly impossible. We tried anyway, year after year, fertility treatment after fertility treatment. Each failure was heartbreaking, but we comforted each other through the pain, or at least, that's what I thought we were doing. Jessica's sister, Melissa, had always been close to us. Unlike Jessica, Melissa was wild and impulsive, changing boyfriends as often as she changed her hair color. But she was family, and I accepted her as such. When Melissa announced her pregnancy 13 years ago, we were shocked but supportive. She never revealed who the father was, claiming it was a brief affair with a tourist who had returned to his country. We all accepted this explanation. Why wouldn't we? Claire, Melissa's daughter, was born healthy and beautiful. She had my dark hair and eyes, something everyone commented on, including me. "She looks more like you than her own mother, Daniel," people would joke. I laughed it off, thinking it was just one of those strange genetic coincidences. After all, Jessica and Melissa were sisters. It made sense that Melissa's child might resemble me in some ways. Over the years, I developed a special bond with Claire. She was bright, creative, and had a passion for architecture just like me. I took her to museums, taught her how to draw building plans, and answered her endless questions about design and structure. I often thought how wonderful it would have been to have a daughter like her, but I was grateful to be her uncle. 2 weeks ago, I was working late at my home office when I received an anonymous email. The subject line read, "Your wife and her sister have been lying to you for 13 years." Attached were medical records from a fertility clinic dated 13 years ago, showing that Jessica had undergone egg retrieval procedures and I had apparently provided sperm samples. There were consent forms with what appeared to be my signature forged because I had never visited this particular clinic. I thought it was some kind of sick joke, but something compelled me to keep digging. I hired a private investigator who uncovered the truth within days. Jessica had secretly agreed to be a surrogate for Melissa, using her eggs and my sperm. They had forged my signature on the consent forms. For 13 years, they had hidden the fact that Claire was biologically my daughter, our daughter, not my niece. The betrayal was unimaginable, but there was more. As the investigation continued, the PI discovered that Jessica's monthly book club meetings were actually rendezvous with her long-term lover, a surgeon she had met at the hospital where she worked. This affair had been going on for 5 years, nearly a third of our marriage. The box on my kitchen counter contained all this evidence, neatly organized and devastating in its thoroughness. I had asked the PI to deliver it while Jessica was out, giving me time to process everything before confronting her. As I sat there staring at the box, I felt a strange calm settle over me. 18 years of marriage built on a foundation of lies. A daughter who didn't know I was her father, a wife who had betrayed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. It was time for the truth to come out, but on my terms. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. The plan came together over the next 3 days. I didn't confront Jessica immediately. Instead, I documented everything, secured our financial assets, and set up separate accounts. I consulted with family law specialists about the situation with Claire. I learned that while I had a case for parental rights, the process would be complicated and potentially traumatic for Claire. I needed to think carefully about how to proceed. During those 3 days, I maintained the facade of normalcy. I kissed Jessica goodbye in the mornings, made small talk over dinner, and slept beside her at night, all while carrying the crushing weight of her betrayal. It was like living with a stranger wearing my wife's face. On the 4th day, Jessica announced that she needed to go away for a weekend retreat with her hospital colleagues. I knew she was lying. The PI had confirmed she was planning a weekend with her lover at a cabin in the mountains. "That sounds great, honey. You deserve a break," I said, smiling. As soon as she left on Friday afternoon, I put my plan into motion. First, I called Melissa and asked her to come over, saying I needed her help planning a surprise anniversary party for Jessica. Always eager to be involved, she agreed immediately. When Melissa arrived, I invited her to sit at the kitchen table. I offered her a glass of wine, which she accepted gratefully. Then I placed the box between us. "What's this?" she asked, curiosity lighting up her face, a face so similar to my wife's, yet now seeming sinister in its familiarity. "Open it," I said quietly. She removed the lid and froze when she saw the contents. Her face drained of color as she flipped through the top folder containing the fertility clinic records. "Daniel, 13 years, I interrupted, my voice surprisingly steady. 13 years you and Jessica have been lying to me. Claire is my daughter, isn't she?" Tears sprang to her eyes. "We never meant to hurt you, never meant to hurt me," I laughed bitterly. "You stole my child from me, you forged my signature, you denied me the chance to be a father to my own daughter." "Jessica couldn't bear children," Melissa sobbed. "But she wanted you to have a biological child so badly. We thought this way you could still be in Claire's life, just not as her father." "Not as her father," I repeated. "Just as the fun uncle who takes her to museums and helps with homework, while you get to be her mother. How convenient for everyone except me." "Please understand." "No, you understand this." I pushed another folder toward her. "I've spoken with my lawyers, I have options, I can file for parental rights, I can demand a DNA test. I can expose what you and Jessica did, the fraud, the deception, all of it." Melissa's face contorted with fear. "You wouldn't do that to Claire, it would destroy her." "The way you destroyed me," I countered, but then softened slightly. "No, I wouldn't hurt Claire, she's innocent in all this, which is why I'm giving you a choice." I outlined my terms. Melissa would tell Claire the truth, with proper professional support to help Claire process this revelation. I would be acknowledged as Claire's biological father with formal visitation rights. Melissa would sign legal documents confirming these arrangements and admitting to the deception. "And if I refuse," Melissa whispered, "then I'll pursue this through the courts. Every detail will become public record. Claire will still learn the truth, but in the most painful way possible. Your choice." She stared at me for a long moment. "What about Jessica?" "Jessica," I said, feeling a cold resolve, "is a separate issue. She didn't just steal my chance to be a father. She's been cheating on me for 5 years. I slid another folder toward Melissa, containing the evidence of Jessica's affair. Melissa's eyes widened as she looked through the photos of Jessica with her lover. "I had no idea," she murmured. "I find that hard to believe," I replied. "But it doesn't matter now. I've already filed for divorce. Jessica just doesn't know it yet." After 2 hours of tears and negotiations, Melissa agreed to my terms. We scheduled a session with a family therapist for the following week, where Claire would be told the truth about her parentage. Melissa left my house a broken woman, but I felt no satisfaction, only the dull ache of necessary justice. Now I had to deal with Jessica. While I had discovered Jessica's betrayal only recently, I now realized there had been signs throughout our marriage. Small inconsistencies in her stories, unexplained absences, the way she would sometimes look at Claire with a strange mixture of love and guilt. I had ignored these signs because I trusted her implicitly. What a fool I had been. For her weekend retreat, Jessica had told me she would be at a mountain resort with poor cell reception. In reality, she was at a cabin just 2 hours from our home with her lover, Dr. James Peterson, a neurosurgeon with a reputation for sleeping with nurses and residents. The cabin belonged to James's family. It was secluded, surrounded by woods, and offered the perfect setting for their romantic getaway. It also offered the perfect setting for my confrontation. I arrived at the cabin on Saturday morning. Their cars were parked outside, Jessica's red SUV and James's black luxury sedan. I parked my car down the road, out of sight, and approached on foot. Through the window, I could see them in the kitchen, laughing as they prepared breakfast together. The domesticity of the scene was like a knife to my heart. I knocked on the door. The laughter inside ceased immediately. After a moment of hushed conversation, footsteps approached. The door opened and there stood Jessica, her smile evaporating when she saw me. "Daniel," her voice was barely audible, "what are you doing here?" "I think we need to talk," I said calmly. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. James was standing in the kitchen, his face a mask of cool professionalism despite being caught in this compromising situation. "Dr. Peterson," I acknowledged with a nod. "Good to finally meet you properly. We've seen each other at hospital functions, but we've never been formally introduced. I'm Daniel Morgan, Jessica's husband of 18 years. "Daniel, please," Jessica began, her voice trembling. "This isn't what it looks like, isn't it?" I interrupted. "Because it looks like you're having a romantic weekend with your lover of 5 years. It looks like you've been lying to me about your book club meetings and work retreats. It looks exactly like what it is, Jessica." James stepped forward. "Mr. Morgan, I understand you're upset." "Upset doesn't begin to cover it," I replied, "but your affair is actually the least of my concerns right now." I turned back to Jessica. "I know about Claire." The color drained from her face. "What about Claire?" "I know she's my daughter. I know you and Melissa used my sperm without my consent. I know you've been lying to me for 13 years, denying me the right to be a father to my own child." Jessica collapsed onto a nearby chair, her legs seemingly unable to support her anymore. "How did you find out?" I didn't answer that question. Instead, I placed my wedding ring on the table between us. "I've filed for divorce. My lawyers will contact you on Monday, but I wanted to tell you in person that I know everything about Claire, about your affair, about all the lies." "Daniel, please," she sobbed. "We can work through this. We can get counseling." "There's nothing to work through," I said firmly. "Our marriage ended the moment you decided to steal my chance to be a father. It was buried when you started sleeping with him." I nodded toward James, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. "What about Claire?" Jessica asked, wiping tears from her face. "What are you going to do?" "I've already spoken with Melissa. Claire will be told the truth next week with professional support. I will be acknowledged as her father with all the rights that entails." "You had no right to make that decision without me," Jessica suddenly shouted, anger flashing through her tears. The irony of her statement hit me like a physical blow. "I had no right. You had no right to use my sperm without my consent. You had no right to deny me the knowledge that I had a daughter. You had no right to cheat on me for 5 years while I remained faithful to you." My voice had risen to a shout, and I took a deep breath to calm myself. "This isn't a negotiation, Jessica. It's a courtesy notification. The divorce papers will spell out the financial settlement. I've been more than fair, which is more than you deserve." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing. I've sent emails to both of your families explaining exactly why our marriage is ending. I've included proof of everything, the surrogacy fraud and the affair. I thought they should hear it from me before you have a chance to spin your version of events." Jessica's face crumpled. "You didn't have to do that." No, I agreed. But then you didn't have to lie to me for 18 years. Actions have consequences, Jessica. It's time you faced yours. As I walked back to my car, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only a profound sadness for what could have been and what never was. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, therapy sessions, and difficult conversations. The divorce proceedings moved forward quickly, thanks to the ironclad prenuptial agreement we had signed before our marriage. Jessica didn't contest it. She knew she had no ground to stand on. The most challenging part was the session where Claire was told the truth about her parentage. I insisted on being present, along with Melissa, Jessica, and the family therapist. Claire was understandably shocked and angry. She left the session in tears, refusing to speak to any of us. For days, I heard nothing from her. I respected her need for space while she processed this life-altering information. Then one evening, she called me. "Can we meet?" She asked, her voice small but determined. Just us. We arranged to meet at a park where I used to take her when she was younger. She was sitting on a bench when I arrived, looking so much like a combination of Jessica and me that it made my heart ache. I sat beside her, leaving some space between us, unsure of what to say. "Why didn't you know about me?" she finally asked. "Mom, Melissa, said you didn't know I was your biological daughter, but how is that possible? Didn't you donate sperm?" I explained as gently as I could, telling her about the forged signatures and the deception. I showed her copies of some of the documents, careful to focus on the facts without vilifying her mothers. "So they stole from you," she said quietly. "They stole me from you. They made a terrible choice," I corrected. "But I don't want you to think of yourself as something that was stolen. You are the most precious person in my life, Claire. I've always loved you as my niece. Now I can love you as my daughter if you'll let me." She was silent for a long moment. "I don't know how to feel about any of this. Everything I thought I knew about my life is a lie." "Not everything," I said. "The love we all have for you, that's real. Your talents, your dreams, your personality, those are all real. The circumstances of your conception don't define who you are. But they do define who I can trust," she replied, wisdom beyond her 13 years evident in her words. "I don't know if I can ever trust them again." "Trust takes time to rebuild," I said, "and it's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling right now." She looked at me, my eyes filled with tears. "Can I hug you, Dad?" That single word broke something inside me. I pulled her into my arms and held her as we both cried, for the years lost, for the pain of deception, but also for the possibility of a new beginning. 6 months after the revelation that shattered my world, I was sitting in my new apartment, looking through architectural plans for a project I was designing. My phone rang. It was Claire. "Dad," her voice was excited, "I got my science project results back, first place." "That's incredible." "I knew you could do it," I replied, my heart warming at being called Dad, something that still felt new and precious. "Can I come over this weekend to celebrate? Maybe we could visit that new science museum you told me about." "Absolutely, I'd love that." After we hung up, I sat back in my chair, reflecting on how much had changed. The divorce was finalized. Jessica had moved to another state to start fresh, as she put it in her last email to me. Melissa and I had established a co-parenting arrangement that was working reasonably well, though our relationship remained strained. Claire spent every other weekend with me, plus one dinner each week. We were slowly building our father-daughter relationship, getting to know each other in our new roles. It wasn't always easy, but it was real, and that made all the difference. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Elise, a landscape architect I had met through work. "Still on for dinner tonight, looking forward to it." I smiled as I texted back a confirmation. Elise knew my story. I had been upfront about the complicated situation with Claire and my recent divorce. She had been understanding and patient, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. As I returned to my work, I thought about the box that had sat on my kitchen counter 6 months ago. The box that had contained the evidence of betrayal and lies. It had also, unexpectedly, contained the key to a truth I deserved to know. The revelation of Jessica's betrayal had shattered the life I thought I had. But from those broken pieces, I was building something new, something authentic. I had lost a wife who had never truly been faithful, but I had gained a daughter who was now becoming a central part of my life. Some might say I had taken revenge by exposing the truth and dismantling the careful web of lies Jessica and Melissa had constructed. But I preferred to think of it as justice, painful but necessary justice. The greatest irony was that in trying to give me what they thought I wanted, a biological connection to a child, without actually giving me the role of father, Jessica and Melissa had ultimately lost everything. And in losing what I thought was a perfect marriage, I had gained something far more valuable, the truth, and with it, the chance to be the father I was always meant to be. The journey ahead would not be easy. Claire would continue to struggle with the revelation about her origins. I would have challenging days co-parenting with Melissa. But for the first time in 13 years, no, in 18 years, I was living an authentic life. No more lies, no more deception. And that, I realized, was worth everything I had lost. It was exactly 1 year after I discovered the truth about Claire and Jessica's betrayal. I stood in the backyard of my new home, a modern, open-concept house I had designed myself, watching as Claire played with Elise's son, Tyler. The two teens had become fast friends, bonding over their shared interest in science and their experiences with complicated family situations, as Claire put it. Elise stood beside me, her hand lightly touching mine. "They get along so well," she observed, smiling. "They do," I agreed, feeling a contentment I hadn't thought possible a year ago. Claire looked up and waved, her smile so like mine, bright in the afternoon sun. I waved back, my heart full. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it, a text from Jessica. "Can we talk? I'm in town." I showed the message to Elise, who squeezed my hand supportively. "What will you do?" she asked. I took a deep breath, thinking about how far I'd come, how much healing had taken place. "I think it's time," I replied, both to Elise and to myself. Later that evening, after Claire had gone home to Melissa's, I met Jessica at a quiet cafe downtown. She looked different, older somehow, despite it being only a year since I'd seen her last. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down across from her. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She twisted her hands nervously on the table. "I wanted to apologize, really apologize, not just make excuses. What Melissa and I did to you was unforgivable. We took away your right to be Claire's father. We lied to you for years. And then," she faltered, "and then I betrayed our marriage in the worst possible way." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "I've been in therapy this past year," she went on, "trying to understand why I did what I did. It doesn't excuse anything, but I thought you deserved to know that I'm trying to be better, to be honest with myself about the harm I caused." "I appreciate that," I said quietly. "How is Claire?" she asked, a hint of the old pain in her voice. "She's doing well. It hasn't been easy for her, but she's resilient. She's building relationships with all of us, me, Melissa, even you in your own way through your calls and messages." Jessica nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I miss her. I miss you too, Daniel, not as my husband, I know that's over, but as the good man you always were, the man I hurt so deeply." I considered her words carefully before responding. "The pain you caused was enormous, Jessica, but I'm healing. Claire is healing. Even Melissa is finding her way forward. I hope you can heal too." "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" she asked, vulnerability evident in her voice. I thought about Claire, about Elise and Tyler, about the new life I was building. "I'm working on it," I answered honestly. "Forgiveness is a process, not a single moment, but I'm not holding on to anger anymore. That's a start." Relief washed over her face. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." As we parted ways, I felt a subtle shift within me, not a complete release of the past, but a loosening of its grip on my present. Jessica's betrayal had shattered my world, but in piecing it back together, I had created something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more satisfying than what had existed before. My phone buzzed as I walked to my car. A text from Elise. "Everything okay?" I smiled as I typed my response. "Yes, everything is exactly as it should be." And for the first time in a very long time, I truly believed that was true.